Well, my parents immigrated to this country when I was 3 months old. So, and I grew up first in Waukegan, Illinois, so Spanish speaking. Uh, Spanish is my first language. So the American dream growing up, as I began to get more Americanized, because remember I grew up in a Spanish speaking household. Spanish was my first language. Different things were being opened up to me that I'd never experienced or seen before. Different things. So as far as the American dream, I was taking it step by step. My parents were the one with the dream because I was already raised in this country. And then the aspiration, I guess the first aspiration is, what high school are you going to go to? What college are you going to go to? And then, well, what are you going to major in? And by that time, I had already decided I really like theater. So the American dream for me would be when I realized what my passion was, and I did everything I could to be able to make a life and a career in the field that I love, which is, theater, acting, film, television. Let me think. I think I really liked theater in high school. That's where I got introduced to the arts, really. And once I got into college, I realized that if I was going to do a career path, I really needed to get a lot more training because I went to a predominantly Hispanic high school, raised in a predominantly Hispanic community, but college was predominantly white, and I was at USC in 71, so it was predominantly white and very wealthy, and that is academically rigorous at the time. And I was there, one of the few Latinas, and one of the only Latinas in theater at the time. So I realized that I had to readjust how I was going to approach my career then. I had to get a lot more training. It was going to be difficult because I was the only Latina. So there was a lot of issues about being able to relate to other actors, scenes, monologues, the material that was being given to me, which is mostly, white, Anglo. So it was difficult not only relating, for example, in the theater classes to what they were telling me, because the normative, all the professors, all the scenes that they chose, the plays that they chose, were all basically a white normative. And it was sort of white dominant culture that they were portraying in all the plays that they were giving us. And all my classmates were generally white. So for me, I always felt like the outsider. I was trying to find connections, but I couldn't find them, could not find them. It took me a while. But that was it. That was a big struggle when I started my acting career in college. At SC, I made one really good friend. She was my roommate, and she was white from the Midwest and very, very wealthy. I had my parents paid for my room and board my first semester at USC, but they made it very clear that that's all they could afford, and I would have to work my second semester, which I did at Bullock's men's department in downtown LA. But my roommate was very wealthy, and she would invite me, let's go to a movie. Had no money. Let's go to dinner. Don't have no money. I had no money, period. I didn't even have money for books because when I got the scholarship, they didn't tell me, or no one told me, that I had to buy my own books. And I couldn't ask my parents, so I started taking classes where I could afford the books with the little money I made. So that's how it was different. I was always, never had any money. And so I couldn't partake in a lot of stuff. Not to major in theater. They basically said when I told them I was going to do theater, they said, well, we're not going to help you anymore. Not that they could, because, they're pretty much blue collar workers, but they said they wouldn't help me. So yeah, so I just had to do really well in school and get lots of scholarships. That's how I got through my education. Tons and tons of scholarships. I always worked really hard. For me was my high school drama teacher, um, His name is Squire Friedel, and we're still in touch. But he's the one that early on really supported me. I was incredibly shy, not very good, but he always supported me and put me in his plays and just kind of built up my confidence and all. So Squire Friedel. Helped me, of course. I've always been extremely proud of being Mexican. I mean, um, I I'm the one in my family who studied Spanish, can really speak Spanish. All of my siblings. I went to Mexico to study. I traveled there. I took my Mexican literature courses, and it's like it's and yeah, no, it really was what I held on to when I went through SC and other sort of early on white institutions and jobs and all that. So yeah, no, and specifically Chicano. Very, very young, I dropped out of SC, by the way, and I went to Mexico, the University of Guadalajara, and I also dropped out because SC, there was an incident. There was a lot of drugs, and my roommate had an overdose, and I was just scared out of my wits. My wits. A lot of, again, drugs and sex and alcohol, and I was just completely out of place, completely. So I ran from there. My second semester, went to Mexico because I thought I was Mexican. Like, oh, I must be Mexican. I don't belong in U.S. universities. So in Mexico, I got some great training, but I realized I wasn't Mexican either. I was a pocha. So I think I found, when I found a theater company called El Teatro Campesino up in the Bay Area, who does Mexican American theater, then I figured out what I was. I was a Chicana. I was a Mexican American. I was a Chicana. And that changed everything. I was always proud of being Mexican, but it was Mexican, not Mexican American. So that's why it didn't fit. I didn't fit because I wasn't acknowledging the Americanized part of my Mexicanidad. But when I work with Teatro Campesino, I realized I'm Chicana. I could be both. That's what I am. I'm both at the same time. So that completely changed everything for me. It made me question as far as my methods for finding my place within the industry, within my career, my profession. Not my goal, because I was always my passion was exactly what I'm doing now. But yes, it made me adapt and change because I realized if I was going to move ahead, not just in my acting career, but also education, I had to get the best training possible, the best, go to the best universities I could possibly go to. As a Latina woman of color, I had the credentials. So yeah, it changed it. It's not that it's easier for people who aren't either women or women of color. It's a hard profession, but we have a disadvantage. We're talented, we're smart, we have the degrees, but because we are women of color, we still get dismissed. Our opinion isn't valued. They assume that we're not bright. And this is all documented, by the way, in studies of Latinas in higher education. They presume that we're not competent. They presume that we don't, that we're angry all the time as opposed to being passionate. So yeah, and again, all of this has been documented. It's in the statistics, and this is something that still pretty much permeates. And also in the entertainment industry, but it's a little bit different entertainment than my career as a professor. It's what it was. It made me probably the person I am today in all the best sense of the word. I just had to work harder. And because I worked harder to get what I really wanted to do, like again, early on, my parents said, we're not going to help you if you do theater. We're not going to help you, period. And to this day, my parents are like, we're so proud of you because you did it yourself. So then I forgive them, they didn't know, but you see, it makes you stronger. It makes you stronger. And I'm, I think, a prime example of that. Because I'm pretty determined. When I set my mind to something, I'm really determined. I realized when I started acting, I mean, I was getting roles, really good roles when I was younger, but also I knew I wanted to grow because I would see actors that I really admired and I wanted to continue growing. I just wanted to keep growing and growing and getting better. So education, education has always been my go-to, always, always. Starting in probably middle school, I loved going to school. I think probably because we had a very crowded household and there's a lot of tension in my household because of, marital things with my parents. So high school became my place where I just like, I could breathe and I could try things and take different classes. And to this day, I think that's why I'm a professor. I love going to the university. Laverne, like when I step on campus, I have a smile. I feel fabulous. The whole environment. I mean, for me, it's this heightened, really beautiful, heightened, almost like a sanctuary, the environment. Universities are created to be sanctuaries. And they were actually, in the beginning, universities were monasteries. They were religious institutions, organizations. So this feeling of, serenity and beautiful things to look at and places to go, like the library, and meditate on knowledge. And it's like a church. So I love university campuses and I love learning. So it was a natural fit. Universities were always my go-to. And to this day, I take classes, as many classes as I can. I'll go anywhere to take a good class, a good workshop. In retrospect, I see it now. You've got to surround yourself by people who support you. Positive people that are going to make you a better person. People who are going to make you, when you're around them, they make you feel better, they support you, and get the negativity. Because a lot of times, like, again, there was a lot of tension in my family growing up, and I love my family. But as I get older, it's like I get to choose who my family's going to be. And I'm surrounded by phenomenal, wonderful friends and colleagues. Oh, some wonderful colleagues at Laverne. But I would say to the young people now, surround yourself by people who support you, believe in you, make you a better person, make you want to be a better person. And those who don't, you've got to relegate them to another place, maybe another place in your life because they're family. But don't be dominated by the opinions, the energy of people who don't believe in you. So choose your friends wisely. Dime con quién andas y te digo quién eres.